Hello, I am Doni Burton. I am a HIL facilitator, and today I would like to walk you through the slideshow for the learning map that is the introduction to double loop questioning. To do that, I'm going to share my screen and get us started. And so here is the slideshow, and periodically I will probably stop having my face showing potentially. I'm not really sure as we go along here, but anyway, the purpose of doing this is so that as you are preparing to actually share this training with a team, you could watch this video to maybe help answer some questions on how to best use this slideshow with a team. So as I've said, this is the double loop questioning part 1. There is a part 2, so that if after you have done part 1, maybe the team needs to have a bit more support, or the team would just like to use some of the additional videos and examples, you could also take a look at the learning map for part 2 of double loop questioning, which actually helps to use it to maybe answer some assumptions and dig a little bit deeper. So here we go with part 1. We begin with a question for the team. What does double loop questioning make you think about, or what role might double loop questioning play with teaching, learning, or planning for improvement? And here's where in the notes it suggests different things for you to do depending on if you're working together with the team or if you are virtual. So if you wanted to have in a virtual setting, the team put thoughts into the chat to answer the question, you could do this. You could then come back and use airplane stacking or whatever method works best for your presentation style to elicit answers from the group. And you could use some of the very same kinds of techniques if you're actually face-to-face, such as leaning into an elbow partner or having table groups. Consider this question as well. The learning outcomes for this session are: what is double loop questioning? Why would a team benefit from using it? How is double loop questioning used with the team? And when should a team plan for using double loop questioning? And because again, this is an introduction, we briefly touch on these particular learning outcomes. So some possible double loop questions are presented here, and they are in what is the appreciative inquiry frame. So we begin with the inquiry learning cycle, and then on top of that, we use an appreciative inquiry model for our questions. So let's break that down a little bit. To answer what is double loop questioning, if we peel back those appreciative inquiry questions, we can just first focus on the inquiry learning cycle, which is a cycle that starts with wondering and noticing questions, and then moving on to the I investigate, I record, and following around with I discover, I think, I try, and then I reflect. So it's a basic inquiry learning cycle. And the power then comes from adding in the appreciative inquiry questions. So let's take a look at what that does for us when we do that. Connecting the inquiry learning cycle then with the appreciative inquiry questions really helps us to take a positive core type look and celebrate the successes of whatever it is that we are exploring or looking more deeply at with our data. So for example, if we just look at I wonder and take a look at the suggested questions that are giving us that appreciative inquiry approach, we are asking, what is this data about, and what do we see in the data? And by starting there, it really helps the team to begin to sort of peel back some of the maybe perceptions that they would have had previously about the data, or maybe some of the thinking that the team comes in with about the data to start with. And then as you go around the inquiry learning cycle, taking that appreciative inquiry approach with the questions, it does really help to heighten that energy and inspire a commitment to change with your group. And so one of the things that you could actually do with your team is that you could, have a question or a time for discussion about these questions, or you could just make sure that the team gets a chance to actually read through these AI questions before moving on. It just depends on the experience that your team would have previously had with both the inquiry learning cycle and then also having an appreciative inquiry approach, or starting from being positive about any type of data or any experiences that they have had previously in the school or with the data. So then why would a team benefit from using double loop questioning? It would be an assumption that if you are using this learning map, you may be a HIL school. You may be, but you may not be. So for the sake of thinking that maybe you are, we are taking a look here at the high impact leadership principles for school renewal. So these are positive core, evidence-based decisions, collective ownership, and organizational learning. And specifically, we can look at evidence-based decisions, organizational learning, and collective ownership as 3 of the 4 high impact leadership principles for school renewal that double loop questioning can support as you are working with your school teams, your principals, your teacher leaders via the HIL process. To take it even a step further, when you are working through any kind of aspect of the HIL phases or the renewal process with HIL, we also know that we do look for the creation of the deliverables, and now we call them artifacts. And so this slide has arrows that are pointing out specific places where using double loop questioning can support that work. And so we look at the development of the school performance profile, the gold standard implementation guides, monitoring, and then reviewing what kind of progress has the school team made, has the school as a whole made in relationship to these plans, and then the implementation of the plans, et cetera, and so on. So once a school team, PLCs, the school as a whole has had the experience of actually using double loop questioning, it can become a real nice tool and a way for the school to continuously use that in their discussions and in their review of progress and in the way that they might continue to look at data going forward. So we know that data can definitely tell a story, and it can tell a more in-depth or a more specific story if we ask enough questions. So one of the things that using double loop questioning can do is it can really help to bring out thoughtfulness and a real highly illustrated story for us. And so I've put in the notes here that if we take a moment and read through the cycle and the questions and really think about what are these questions asking, and give the team that you're working with the time to kind of soak in as we go through the inquiry learning cycle, as we look at the appreciative inquiry questions that are posed here that could possibly help us to let our data tell us a deeper story and help us to really illustrate what is happening in our school based on the data sets that we might want to look at, we can get a confidence and feel very supported as a team on what the data is telling us and how we might proceed based on that story. And so depending on, again, whether you are virtual or face-to-face, you can decide if you want to use breakout groups, if you want to have teams working at table groups. But what you will want to do is to take a photo of the inquiry learning cycle with the questions with the appreciative inquiry questions so that teams have that as a reference before we go forward, because there is going to be an opportunity for teams to practice with some data provided by other schools that have actually used or been using double loop questioning. And so as the notes say, take a photo so that they will be able to, if they're virtual, use it, or if you are face-to-face, you can decide what screen you might keep up for your schools to use while they're in their teams. So as another way to motivate your teams, the questions that we ask definitely drive our discovery. And so what we have here is a real attempt to be very appreciative, to let the data tell its story, but also to empower teams to uncover and test assumptions, just what it's telling us here, A through E. Look beyond and between the data, move past what we have already thought that data was telling us, open up new areas for inquiry, like allow ourselves to see things we had not seen before, and then move to what E is saying and find ways to have actionable growth opportunities with and for our students and our schools. So then what's next? How are we going to use this? What do we need to do to be able to do it? And so this is where your team can have sort of a choice. So if the team is ready to get their feet wet, then you don't need to watch the video that is linked here. But if the team is saying, wow, we would really like to see how another school team has actually used double loop questioning, then take the 16 minutes, click on the video and watch it. If not, then move right along and keep going with what this slideshow has the team preparing to do. That would be your decision. But what I would like to show you as someone who's preparing and training is the Padlet. So what I have is I have all of the videos and the Google Forms and so on organized into a Padlet for you. So if you click, you will see that we are now going to the Padlet, and the Padlet is for both part 1 and part 2 of these learning maps. And the video that is talked about has the same title that was titled on your slide, which is Explore Part 1, Learning Map 1, Choice 2 video. And so it tells you here from where to where is that specific 16 minutes that is recommended that you view. You are more than welcome to watch the entire thing, which would be more of what the team did, etc., and so on. But the 16 minutes that I've highlighted is what would give you like the best impact for your school team with what we're exactly talking about. But you could watch it all if you wanted to at your leisure later. But this is the Padlet, and you'll see here in this Padlet that it also has the slideshows. It has every single thing associated with the learning map linked here in this Padlet. And it's very easy for you to just click back to your slideshow. Once you do go to the Padlet, nothing for you to worry over or anything like that. So then we're going to go on. So trying double loop questioning, like I said, if your team does not want to take the time to watch the other school team that was actively practicing double loop questioning, then don't. You could always go back and do it later. But what is here is a chance for your school team, as you're using this learning map, to try double loop questioning in a way that is not a pressure situation where they're using their own school data, but they're using some data from another school, just to be able to not have like an emotional attachment in any way to this data, but just to get their feet wet with double loop questioning. So if the team needed to take a break, I've just put in the notes here, maybe you would do it here, go refresh coffee or whatever, or just keep going depending on how long you have been using this slideshow so far. That would be, of course, your decision. So here is the example, here is the practice. So this particular school where this data is coming from had used the GELN school-wide survey, the Essential School-Wide Practices Survey. And what's linked here in the slideshow, just for your reference, is a link to GELN, to the School-Wide Essentials, and also a link to the Google form that this particular school used, just in case your school might like to use it. Nothing you need to even click on, but just there simply for your reference. So then this is the data that you can use, that is for your team to practice and use. It is extrapolated from that survey that the previous school used. So it's taking a look at practice 8, family engagement. The specific bullet strategy has to do with we engage families in learning about family literacy practices. So this is the exact data from that school, and your team can see it, take a look at it. So this is where your team needs to have two things. They need to have this data, and they need to have the link to the double loop questioning. And so they would have both of those. And this is, again, where you decide, will you have them in breakout teams because you're virtual? Will they have elbow partners because they are face-to-face? What is your setup? What do they need? That's your decision, and you can decide. So then you put them into their teams, you have them view the data, and you have them using whatever aspects of double loop questioning that your training time allows. If they can get through the entire sequence, wonderful. If you want them getting through I wonder only to get their feet wet, that also works. It really is up to you and the amount of training time that you have available. Or possibly you would have one team doing I wonder, and another team, if we click on this link here, we can see this is a single slide of the model. We can make it full screen so you can see it. It's up to you on how you use it, but you could have one team doing I wonder and another team I investigate and someone else doing I record. Again, it's just your style, your team's needs, how much time you have. But the point being, you want them using the data set here and the inquiry and appreciative inquiry with the double loop questioning model to take a look at this data set and to be looking at it with that appreciative lens and to be looking at it more deeply than if they just look, oh, we see 45% for this and we see 27.3% for that. They're going to look at it in a much different way using those questions and using double loop questioning as their process. And so then having said that, here we are now. So then you want to find out as the teams come back, what did they like about using double loop questioning? What then will be next for your team's use of double loop questioning? And if there's time and you can have teams share out to these questions, then you can hear it firsthand. If you are rushed for time, or if you just want to also hear out from a couple teams, but hear from each individual where they are individually, there is a Google form that you can make a copy of. So you would copy this form and then you can send it out to every participant of your training to just get a readiness. Where are they with their individual feeling and readiness for using double loop questioning? And so it is basically could be a ticket out the door. It could be in a follow-up email. You could do it right during your training if you have time. Again, it is a presenter's preference on how you would like to use it, but it does, as you can see, talk about their participation. How are they feeling about their understanding of double loop questioning? And then are they ready to use it? Did something surprise them about it? Are they wondering something about it? And so on, just so that you have that feeling of readiness and understanding for the use of double loop questioning. So that is for you to use or not use. Again, your decision. So then as we get to the wrap up for this part 1 training of double loop questioning, if it is important as a trainer and someone working with the team you're working with for you to know the current state, you have the tools for being able to do that. And then as far as your options for going forward, you would then be in a decision to be able to say, we're ready, we can use double loop questioning to review data in our school or with our team in these ways, X, Y, Z, or wow, we have enough knowledge to know that it's something that could be powerful for our school, but we are very interested in looking at that second map so that we can learn a little more. We want to see some of the other resources that are in that Padlet. So then you would schedule time to do that part 2 training with your team. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point. And thank you so much for tuning in. And hopefully double loop questioning will become something that your team embraces and looks forward to using as you review data with that appreciative inquiry lens. Thank you.